I'm just a Christian, you know.
Okay.
I just believe what the Word of God says.
Right.
What do you believe?
I'm a non-believer. I'm going to use that phrase.
Did you say you're an atheist? Is that what you're saying?
It depends how you define atheist. I don't believe in God, so if you're happy to use that as atheist, some people will call that agnostic. I don't really care that much what you call it. You can call it Bob if you want. I don't believe in God. That's I think the appropriate. That's fine if you want to call that atheist. You can call that atheist.
Okay.
I'm happy
so
with
I think because obviously we're gonna speak a little bit about the Kalam argument. But
yeah, sure.
what I was saying is that's basically the foundation of the Christian argument. Okay. How does everything come into existence? Because we're talking about existence, right? How did you come into existence? How did I come into existence? So the question I'd pose to you is that, as an atheist, because that's what it means, no God, non-God, right?
No belief in God.
No belief, right. So what foundation or what evidence or do you base that on, that there is no God?
Okay, so first of all, when I say that, to say there's no God, first of all, it depends on what you mean by God. Of course, you'd have to define what the phrase God means. And obviously, different definitions of God I wouldn't be as opposed to. So some people would associate simply the laws of physics as God. I mean, obviously, I believe in the laws of physics.
Einstein also.
Right, exactly. There's like a Spinozian form of the word God. So, first off, I think the bottom line is, I think that whoever's trying to establish a proposition has the burden of proof. So if I claim that there's a Loch Ness monster, it's not up to the person that denies that there's a Loch Ness monster to prove that there isn't one. It's up to the person saying that such a thing exists to show the evidence that it does exist. So I do believe that the burden of evidence is on the believer to give me evidence that God exists, because it's not something that you obviously see in front of you, right? I think basically, I mean, my two reasons, I guess, for believing that the God of Christianity doesn't exist, let's put it that way, is one, the arguments that have been presented for the Christian God, like the Kalam argument and other arguments, don't work. They're not valid arguments, so they don't work. And if you're left with no good arguments, then you shouldn't believe that the proposition is true. I mean, it could be true. It's not impossible that it's true, but you shouldn't believe that it is true if the arguments are invalid arguments. And I believe they are invalid arguments. And then on top of that, I would say the world as it appears does not look like I would expect it to look like if that God was true. Of course, you would debate what you would expect the world to look like, but you know, that's another issue. But basically, so I mean, to take the Kalam argument, it's just an invalid argument. The propositions, we don't know any of them to be true, and even if they were true, it doesn't lead you to God. So
okay, so the question, I mean, I think what we're trying to get at is this, the reason I wanted to start from where our positions are is because I think we need to kind of have some foundation to build upon. So
that's fine.
You said that the burden of proof is on us because we're making a claim that there is a God.
Yes.
However, you are also making a claim, right? Because you said that there is no God. That's what atheism is. That
no, I don't say that. I say I don't believe in God. I'm not actually making the claim there is definitely no God.
Right. So you're agnostic then.
Well, as I say, it's up to you how you label it.
That's an atheist, brother.
Okay, no, but hang on. We're going to get bogged down in what the terminology means.
Right.
My position, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it atheism, you can call it agnosticism, is that I don't believe in God. That's not the same as saying there definitely is no God. Right? There might be a God, but so I don't think it's appropriate to believe in God because the evidence is insufficient.
I think you're
now you can call that agnosticism. I don't care.
I think it is.
I don't think it doesn't matter.
What agnosticism is that you're neither way. There could be a God, which it seems to say, or there might not be a God. So you're agnostic. So you're open to the idea that there can be
I'm open to the idea. I'm not. Personally, I don't think we should get bogged down in terminology. But I
think it's important to know.
Okay,
where you stand,
if you want to go there, I'll go there for a brief moment, right? But I don't want us to get bogged down in it. I don't think, I would not call myself an agnostic on the Loch Ness monster, right? Because I don't see any good evidence that there is a Loch Ness monster. And so in science, you have a principle. It's called the null hypothesis. So if someone wants to present some new phenomena in the universe, right? So I'll give you an example. There's been a proposal recently. There are something called Planck stars. and these are exploding black holes that have a certain signature. Now, there's no consensus in the world of physics at the moment that this is a real phenomenon. Okay, it might be. It might be. We'll hopefully find out over the next coming years, right? Way science does things is it compares that proposal with something called the null hypothesis. So we basically presume that phenomena is not real. Yeah, and then we compare the two. Does the data fit the null hypothesis, or does it fit the hypothesis? Yeah. So you have this default position of what's called the null hypothesis, and this is very, very common in science, and it's for a very good reason, because otherwise there's an infinite number of propositions that might be true, right? But you don't give them much credibility, right? I mean, I could come up with a gazillion different things that might be true, okay? It might be true that there are fairies that are invisible and climbing up inside that tree, right? And I cannot prove that there aren't any. What I can say is that the null hypothesis looks like it fits the data better than the hypothesis.
So you're talking about probability, right?
I don't know if I want to phrase it in the terms of probability. What I'm saying is that if you make a claim, then you need to provide evidence for that claim. You don't need to prove, like, to take maybe a better example would be in a murder trial. Okay, the defense does not have to prove that the defendant didn't do it, right? They can't do that. They can't prove that the guy didn't do it. They can only say the evidence that he did do it is insufficient. And if it's insufficient, the judge or the jury should dismiss the case, either at the point of time when the verdict has to be due or beforehand, right? If the evidence is clearly insufficient, right, then you dismiss the case, right? You say, okay, bye-bye, I'm not considering this proposition anymore. You see what I mean? You don't have to prove that the negation is true. You only have to say, if I'm proposing something, if the evidence that I bring to the table is shoddy, then I can just say I don't believe in that.
Okay.
And that's a
I do understand what you're saying, but I'm just the reason why it's so important to get these foundations, because I believe that atheists are also making a claim. If you call it atheist, if you're agnostic, it's a completely different, because that shows that you're open to the evidence that perhaps I can provide.
I am open to the evidence,
right?
So
okay,
you can
so
call it whatever you like.
But if you're an atheist, that means there is no God, and then you have to start from that position, and then I have to address it from that perspective. But if you're in a position whereby you're saying, okay, well, I'm neither way, just like in a court trial, in a murder, we don't know who.
No, but a court trial doesn't start off with we're indifferent between guilty and innocent. The court trial starts off with the presumption of innocence. Similarly, in science, you start off with an assumption of the null hypothesis, and if the null hypothesis is disproven with the hypothesis, then fine.
I didn't want to go too much into details, but if you think about a court trial, a court trial doesn't start from the court, right? It starts from a person being arrested, right?
Of course. But that's by the by.
And exactly, but then obviously there's an interview stage, and
I think
and then they put them in.
Diverting from the main
that's what I'm saying. I didn't want to divert, but it doesn't actually start from a neutral perspective. It's actually, as you say, you could say agnostic in a sense, because we don't know, and we're going to look at both evidences, and we're going to follow where the evidence leads.
Have an open mind,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're an agnostic.
If you want to call it that, fine.
Okay. Fine. Well, I believe there's ample evidence that God exists. Okay. All right. I mean, obviously, we use the Kalam argument.
So let's talk about that, because that's what.
Alright, so everything that begins to exist has a cause. Okay? Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay, is there anything that you know that has begun to exist that doesn't have a cause?
I've never seen anything begin to exist in the sense that if the universe began to, which we don't know. We don't know whether the universe began to exist, but let's suppose that it does. That would be a beginning without any time preceding it. Yeah? Now, I've never seen anything begin to exist without time preceding it. Whenever things begin to exist, they exist with prior moments in time. They exist with already existent energy. They are rearrangements of fundamental particles. So when I came into existence, when I was born, I was made from my parents' genetic material, right? I didn't come into existence in the sense that if the universe began to exist, that what I'm saying is they're disanalogous to each other. I've never seen anything begin to exist in the sense of having no time prior to it.
Right.
Yeah, so I've never seen anything that meets that condition.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you haven't seen. You didn't see yourself being born, but you do believe you was born, right?
Yeah, sure.
You do. Have you been to China before?
I have not been to China.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yes, I have been to China.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been to Hong Kong,
have you been to,
which of course is China.
Have you been to India?
Yes.
Okay. Let's figure this out. Where have you not been? Have you been to, I don't know, Nigeria?
I haven't been to
Okay, so now you haven't been to Nigeria, but I would assume that you believe it exists, yeah? That country, right? So we can't base reason. We can't base our evidence simply just okay. It's called empirical.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
so it's like unless I see it, touch it, smell it, feel it.
Yeah, but hang on. When we say empiricism, we don't mean literally you have to see it with your own eyes. What you're asking for is there evidence in some form that's
right. So empiricism is talking about
so to me, for Nigeria, you know. I don't have to actually go there to have evidence that it exists. I can see videos of it, I can have eyewitness interviews, I can look at satellite images, I can, you know what I mean? There's a whole gamut of evidence that pictures together the best explanation.
What's it based on? What's that based on? That's based on that information someone else is giving you.
Yes, sure.
Right?
Sure.
So it's not
correct.
Exactly. So and it's the same as when obviously you were speaking about I've never been there when the universe began and
no. I'm not saying that I needed to have been there. Of course I didn't need to have been there. So I'm not claiming what I'm saying is that the statement everything that begins to exist is a cause. The condition of that statement, things beginning. You said that have you ever seen anything begin without
I'm saying
a cause?
from your observation, is there anything that you know of that began to exist without any prior cause?
I'm not sure is the honest answer. I mean, maybe, possibly. It depends what you mean by cause.
Well, that's the thing. That's the whole point.
But what I'm saying is that even if it's the case, I mean, people have argued that certain things in quantum mechanics don't have causes. So if you take, for example, the radioactive decay process, you can take, a substance, let's say, you take some substance. Over some period of time it decays into another substance, okay? You can use deterministic laws of physics to predict very, very precisely what the half-life of that decay is. So if I remember rightly, carbon-14 decays to carbon-12 in 5,700 years. So half of those atoms will decay. But you cannot predict which half. And a lot of people say that this is fundamentally a causal, that it's a fundamentally random process without a cause which atoms decay. Not that some atoms decay, they follow deterministic laws, but which of those atoms decay is fundamentally indeterministic. Now that's an argument some people make, and it might be true. I mean, so I think it's not clear then that everything has a cause.
So the question is this.
Yeah, but
right? Do you, as a person who's whether atheist or agnostic, have you ever observed or been able to or viewed something that has, because you see, this is where our argument is we believe we cannot see, for example, your jumper, I know it's designed. Your T-shirt, I know it was designed. I don't have to be there to actually see.
No, I agree.
And so,
I'm not saying you have to have been there.
Right. So what we're asking is this, through the Kalam argument, is that if that statement is not true, we're making a statement.
Right.
If everything that begins to exist has a cause.
Yeah.
So if we're making that statement, okay, it's up to you to refute that statement. Otherwise, we have the right to hold on to that statement.
Okay. Here's what I would suggest, right? First off, you've never seen any causality operate when there's no time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because time came before I was born. Yeah.
Right. So we've got no experience of the world without time being present in the world. Would you agree with that?
Well, we don't, as human beings, of course.
Yeah, and not just as direct observations, I mean in any form of any evidence of any kind. So we have no knowledge as to whether causality would still operate when there's no time. Because when we think about causes that we know about, so if you ask, what was the cause of my T-shirt coming into existence, right? It was the people that made it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that happened before. right? If I asked you what were the cause, if you were a history student and you were asked write an essay about the causes of World War II, you would list World War I, the German unhappiness with the Versailles settlement, you would mention, you know, Hitler's invasion of Poland, you would mention all the things that happened before World War II started. You wouldn't mention things that happened afterwards as causes. So when you talk about causes that you are familiar with, you're talking about things that happened beforehand. Okay? Now, if the universe had a beginning, and I don't see any reason to think that the universe did have a beginning, I don't see any evidence that it did. If you want to present some, I'd be happy to listen to it. Right? But I've not seen any evidence that it did. But let's suppose that it did, because I'm not saying it necessarily didn't. Right? But let's suppose that it did, then that is a moment for the universe, if you like, where there isn't any prior time. Because if the universe began to exist, then there wasn't any time before the universe, because time is part of the universe. Right? So, therefore, I can't say that there must still be a cause. Right? Because causes happen before things. But if the universe began to exist, there is no before.
Can causes not happen simultaneously?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe you want to give me an example. I don't see.
Yeah, of course. If I don't know, if I was to punch a glass window, right?
Yes.
Okay, cause and effect. Punch a glass window.
Yes.
Simultaneously.
They're not simultaneous.
Simultaneously, I'm punching it.
No, they're not simultaneous.
And it's damaging at the same time.
I don't see it as simultaneous.
All right. Okay.
Let me explain why.
Okay,
Let me try and explain why I don't think it's simultaneous. Right. When you punch the glass, right, you're what you know why the glass breaks? You know why I can't just put my hand straight through it? See, hopefully you don't mind me doing that. Sorry, I didn't mean to invade your personal space. Right, let's use this. Right, why doesn't my hand go straight through that? Do you know why?
Yeah, because it's material. It's
not exactly because it's material. No, because actually, if you look at this at an atomic level, okay, it's actually mostly empty space. So that raises the question: why is it that I cannot put my hand straight through this? Because at a deep level, most of this is entirely empty space, right? The reason that I cannot is because there are electrostatic forces that repel my hand, okay? So now those all forces in nature are transmitted via what we call force-carrying particles. Okay, so the force of your fist effectively is transmitted by force-carrying particles. Okay, so this is my understanding of it anyway. Right now, those force-carrying particles, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, must go at a finite speed. They go at a very fast speed, but it's a finite speed. It's the speed of light. Okay, I mean in a vacuum, right, or slower in a medium. So they have a finite time that they go through. Okay, so it's not. It might appear to be simultaneous to you, but it's not really. It's just because the speed of light is so fast that you see it as it appears to be simultaneous to you, but really it's not. There's a finite time those forces are being transmitted.
I do understand what you're saying. What I'm simply saying is that there are some things that happen simultaneously. For example, you're thinking, you're speaking.
Even you're thinking and you're speaking.
You're doing it simultaneously.
No, but even you're thinking.
You're not. Is there? I mean, is there?
Well, okay. I'm not saying nothing happens simultaneously.
Right. So that's
but
the point I'm
saying,
making.
no. But hang on. But cause and effect are not simultaneously. So obviously, you know, like there's a moment in time that we can say is some moment in time, and there is another event that is happening at that same moment in time. I'm not saying nothing is simultaneous.
So what I'm
saying is that causes and effects are, as far as I can see, and are not simultaneous. Causes, as far as we can tell, happen before effects. Yeah, and the example that you gave does not appear to me to be simultaneous.
Okay.
Yeah, and causes happen before effects.
Right.
Not simultaneous. Right. That's how I.
What I'm saying, going back to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Okay, is that time, space, matter, energy, all of these things could have come together simultaneously. Okay, have you ever heard of Stephen Hawking?
I know Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, Stephen, you do know.
So yes,
all right. So Stephen Hawking, I'm sure you've heard a quote in one of his books. It says that we now know that almost everything, everything including time and space itself, had a beginning at the time of the Big Bang.
Okay, yes, he did say that.
Right?
But hang on.
Hold on, let me just finish the point. And so, what are these evidences that he uses? Obviously, he uses evidences such as, you know, the microwave background. So where we can have light and we know where the first singularity or where everything started from. He also uses the Einstein's theory of relativity to explain that away. He also uses the second law of thermodynamics. So where we have energy, okay, all usable energy is being used, okay, and it's going to be a point when we come to that red heat death, where all the usable energy has been, has been used up, and then we have nothing, and then that's when the universe will end, and so through that. And so through these there's various evidences that they've used, scientists have used, to show that there was a beginning, to time, to space, to energy, everything we have.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, sure. And so what we say in terms of when we use the Kalam argument, what we're basically saying is that if everything that we know of has a beginning, if there's anything we don't know of have a beginning, then that thing must have had a cause. Now you might say, okay, well, it must have been prior. Okay, yes, we believe that God, as a Christian, we believe God always existed, right? But then there's a word called sans. You know what the word sans means?
Without.
Yes, it's with,
No, sans is without.
No, so sans meaning with.
It's without. Who's good at French? Sans means without, right?
It's saying this. It's like, you know sans, what does that mean?
Yeah, you say sans gas, right? When you order water.
No,
sans means without.
Sure, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But okay, the point I'm making, it doesn't matter. But the point I'm making is that when we say sans, it means with. Okay, so we're not speaking about, we're not using present. We're not using the tense of present, future. So we're using sense. So what we would say as a Christian, we'd say that when God created all things, okay, He created time, He created time, space, energy, and all things, okay, together, okay, so simultaneously, right? God's always existed, right? So He brought everything into existence.
Okay, so let me address you the Hawking quote and the scientific evidence from the beginning,
sure.
Because that's out of date now.
Oh, so he doesn't believe it anymore?
So what happened was, I'll try and give you some background on this. What happened was, Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose worked on what are called singularity theorems. And these are theorems that basically imply, these are theorems that imply the universe. So basically the universe is stretching, okay, some people say expanding, I'm further with stretching, but so the universe, okay, let's say expanding. If you wind the clock backwards the way the universe is contracting, okay? Now you might say, well, maybe it can just contract forever back into the past. And what these theorems show is that in a finite amount of time, the density, the pressure, the temperature, and the curvature of the universe all become infinity in a finite period of time. So this is what we call the singularity. And you cannot extrapolate before that because all these values are now infinity. Okay? So that then is marked as the beginning of time. Okay? So there's an association of the Big Bang with the beginning of time. However, these singularity theorems are now not considered to be applicable to the universe. Neither Roger Penrose nor Stephen Hawking think that these singularity theorems are valid anymore. So that's out of date.
Because remember, when Stephen Hawking made that statement, he was saying we, so he was speaking about majority of scientists. Okay?
Yes.
Do you believe that the Earth, remember, it's not just remember the second law of thermodynamics.
Well, hang on, one at a time. We'll come on to the second law.
So,
but one thing at a time, okay? So this singularity theorem...
So are you speaking right now about the microwave background in terms of singularity?
Okay, so the microwave background is not emitted when the singularity happens. The microwave background is emitted 380,000 years after that singularity would be there, if it's there. Okay, so that the microwave background only tells you that the universe was hot and dense. It was a hot, dense plasma, right? It doesn't tell you there was a singularity. There's no signature of the singularity in the microwave background. There's only a signature that it was a hot, dense plasma.
Right. So we through the microwave background, we can go back and we can see where everything initiated from. Right? Well, that's what the microwave background is.
No,
it's the radiation, right?
Yes,
picking up,
that's correct.
Right?
Yes.
From all the way back.
But not from all the way back, no. The microwave background is emitted 380,000 years after the Big Bang, okay? It's not going all the way back. Now, there are things you can try and infer about what happened before 380,000 years from the microwave background, that's true. But there's no signature of a singularity in the microwave background. So there may or may not have been a singularity, but if there was, there's nothing you can look at in the cosmic microwave background that will tell you there was a singularity. So that statement is not correct. Now what's happened since those singularity theories? So those singularity theories, the way they work, I'll try and explain to you how they work. So if you imagine matter is attracted to each other by gravity. Okay, so there are forces that obviously we're not. So I've got matter in me, but why don't I just collapse into a black hole? Because there are other forces that are counteracting. So a star, for example, has two forces. It's got the gravitational attraction, which is trying to collapse it all down into a black hole. But it also has radiative pressure, which is pushing it back out. Okay, so it doesn't collapse all down into a singularity. Okay, so what the theories that Penrose and Hawking said was that in the early universe, it would all just collapse into a singularity. Okay. However, those theorems have assumptions. So there are three assumptions in these theorems. One is that gravity is always attractive, i.e. what goes up must come down. Right? That seems pretty obviously true. But what's happened is that since those singularity theorems were proposed, they found that there is a repulsive force in the universe that actually violates. The technical term is called a strong energy condition. But in a non-technical way, gravity is not always attractive. So therefore the theorems are not necessarily true. There's another assumption which is called whether the universe is what's called Lorentzian, but I won't go into that because it's kind of a bit technical. The most important is about having said that, Roger Penrose, the co-author of these theorems, and Stephen Hawking, both of them think that assumption is no longer valid. But the most important one that I think almost all cosmologists that work in this field would agree upon is the assumption that Einstein's theory of general relativity always describes gravity as a false statement. And the reason that it must be a false statement, or we think it must, is that if the entire observable universe is smaller than an atom, then the effects of quantum mechanics will be very, very important. Generally, you've got quantum mechanics which describes the behaviour of subatomic particles. You don't need it to describe the behaviour of big things like you and I. You know, you don't need quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics can explain why I can't push through this fence, but you can use normal classical physics for that. You don't need quantum mechanics for that. So when you get to the whole observer universe is now smaller than an atom, now you really do need quantum mechanics. And therefore, because general relativity doesn't include any quantum descriptions of matter and gravitation, therefore it's not likely to be a valid theory for the early universe. So we need a quantum theory of gravity, which we currently don't have a good theory of quantum gravity. What we do, I'll just finish this one. What we do have are certain proposals for quantum gravity, such as string theory, loop quantum gravity, Herjava-Lifshitz gravity, and now these have not been fully tested, so we don't know if they're correct. But what they have all seemed to be pointing to is that the Big Bang is not the beginning of the universe, that the universe existed before the Big Bang, and therefore we cannot say that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe. That view is outdated.
Okay, I just want to kind of correct my
sure.
standpoint.
Sure.
I am not saying, right, just because I want to clear this up, I'm not saying that one, perhaps I'm not even sure saying that I believe in the Big Bang per se. Okay? I'm not saying.
But you did just use it as
no. I'm just saying what I'm simply using is because obviously you spoke about science, and so I said, okay, let's talk about science for a little bit. Okay? What I am saying is, from a biblical and Christian perspective, is we believe that everything comes from something. Everything has to be.
Well, that may be true.
Yeah. That's the point I was making, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason I threw in science into it is because now scientists, in the last, say, few hundred years or few years, they've now started to approve or affirm what the Bible has said, or what Christians have always said all along, is that yes, we may not have the empirical evidence to show it, but our belief is that the universe had a beginning, it had a creation, okay, which was God. That's what we believe, right?
Yes.
Now, the reason why I quickly went on to, because you're clearly you know about, in terms of quantum mechanics and stuff like that. So the reason I touched on that is because scientists, along with their colleagues and the people who, they've come to their consensus whereby they believe that the universe began. So I'm just saying what I'm saying is that they seem to be in agreement with us. Now, whether I agree with that or not, but my standpoint is this, My standpoint is that just looking at it from a rational perspective, from a logical perspective, as you agree, we cannot think of anything right now that begins to exist without something without something causing it to exist, okay? But what I'm saying to you is, as a Christian, we believe in the only thing that can cause that to come to existence must in itself be eternal, must in itself be spaceless, timeless, extremely powerful to bring the universe to existence. And it must be personal as well, because it has to be able to choose to create, because it's free will, right? Choose to create or not to create. It cannot just be random chance, because what happens is, if you just say, well, it just randomly happens, then you're gonna have to ask certain questions like, okay, how do we know that this universe even exists? How do we know we're not just a brain in a vat? How do we know anything? We will go that far. How do we know what's morality? How do we know what's right and what's wrong? Because all we're doing, we're talking about
I think we're steering away from,
And so what I'm saying to you is that the reason I brought science into it is because the consensus between scientists and...
Okay, well that's not true. What I'm saying is...
Well, you're saying recently that's changed, that's what you're saying.
Correct, yes.
Right, but what I'm saying
it was the consensus, but it's no longer the consensus.
Right, okay, well we can both go away and look at that and research that again. What I'm saying to you from my standpoint, that's what I asked you, is that
can I just...
we have no evidence of something that just pops out of nowhere.
Okay, so let's just deal with one thing at a time. First off, the consensus in cosmology now is that the Big Bang was not necessarily the beginning. There is a consensus that there was some type of Big Bang event, but the belief that that event was necessarily the beginning of time is no longer held by the majority of cosmologists.
Remind me your name, because I forgot.
Phil.
What we'll do on that point, because I want to move on to
hang on, okay.
What I'm saying to you is, we can both go away and we can research that, because from what my last study of that, or my
where are you getting your information from?
From the book, Stephen Hawking's book. I can't remember.
When was that book?
I was actually looking at it.
Is this A Brief History of Time?
Yes, I think that's the one.
When was that book written?
I think it was written in 2005.
1986, I think it was.
Oh, really? But there was a book.
About 30 years.
So when did he make that statement? When did he make that statement?
In that book.
Right. Okay. So that's the point.
About 30 years now.
Right. So what you're saying, which I have to go and look up, is you're saying since the 1980s, now the consensus of scientists disagree with that statement. So you're making that statement. So I have to now.
Well, when I say disagree, I'm not saying that they're saying that the opposing view is true. What I'm saying is...
saying it's not true. They don't believe that
the Big Bang was the beginning.
They don't believe, exactly.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying is, that's something we'll have to go away.
Yes.
But what I'm saying
okay. So let me address the other thing you mentioned, the second law. You mentioned the second law of gravity.
No, the reason that's it. I'm talking about.
Do you want to talk about that, because you said that as a reason for the beginning of the universe?
Second law of thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
that's not true either. Okay. So first off, it's not necessarily true that we'll ever get to a heat death. Okay. The maximum entropy of the universe could be infinite, in which case we'll never get to the heat death, and therefore the universe can be eternal into the past.
You know what's going to happen here? I'm not sorry to cut you. I'm going to continue. What's going to happen is you're going to present your case or your evidence, or you're going to say, well, this is what I've studied and researched, and this is the case, and I'm going to say, no, contrary to the books I've read, it's saying something different. And what we reach a kind of stalemate, whereby I'm saying, well, I've got this evidence on my side, and you're going to say, you have this evidence. So the best way to address
let's put it this way. If I get the very author of the singularity theorems that you've used to say that he thinks the universe did not begin with a Big Bang, would that be sufficient?
Well, no, I would want the consensus. Again, as I said, this is not my evidence. I want the consensus of the majority of
I can give you at least
scholars, scientists and cosmologists. If they can use that consensus, then I would take what they're saying on board, However, remember, as I said, I'm not a scientist. However, what I am saying from my perspective...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you get any information from Theological William Lane Craig?
The Kalam, the Kalam, I've heard him use that.
Right.
So that's
if I got the very scientist that he quotes,
he's a Muslim, isn't he?
No, he's a Christian.
So the word Kalam comes from Islam, isn't it?
Yes, the word does, yeah, but the modern revival of the argument. Okay.
All right.
What would it take? How do you know it's consensus?
Well, I tell you what it would take to convince me, right? That the universe did not have a beginning, right?
Oh, I'm not saying it didn't have a beginning. I'm saying we don't know that it did.
Okay. So what?
That's a different thing.
Okay. So you're saying you don't know now, right? Now what I'm saying, shoot, is this. Let's look at this. Like, for example, say we're investigating a murder, right?
Yeah.
We get to the crime scene. What are we looking for? We're looking for DNA. We're looking for fingerprints.
Yes.
We're looking for any types of evidence that we can present and say this and that happened. Okay.
Sure.
Right. Now, we weren't there when the universe began. Can we agree on that? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
None of the scientists, none of the ones.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. We weren't there.
If it began, we weren't there.
Right, exactly. So, and no scientist or cosmologist can say that. So a lot of this is going to be based on different.
Oh, I agree. You don't need to have been there to say whether it happened.
Right.
I agree with that.
But we can use evidences, right, that we have now to be able to determine, right, what happened in the past, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the evidence I'm presenting to you, and I don't think you've addressed it yet, is that everything that begins to exist must have a cause. Okay. Now you said,
I think I did address it.
Okay.
Because
maybe
what I'm saying is,
hold on. Let me finish. Maybe you can remind me about that.
Yeah.
Because everything we see, whether it's the camera, whether it's your jumper, whether it's anything, we know that though we weren't there, something caused it. Someone either created it or built it or designed it. Okay. And what we're saying is that the reason we're even standing here, it's like a domino effect. If you see a domino effect,
I understand.
You start off the domino effect, okay? Some of us have, and so in order for us to even be here, there has to be something that kicked off the whole thing, put everything into motion.
That I disagree with.
To go back internally, it will be like saying this. Imagine, let me give you an example. Imagine, I don't know, like you're at work, okay?
Yeah.
And your boss tells you, can you get this particular work done, right?
Yeah.
But then she says, well, hold on, just before you do it, I'm going to ask my boss to get authorization that you can do it.
Yeah.
And then she asks her boss, and it goes on internally, forever, infinitum, you never get the work done.
I agree.
And so that's what I'm saying. So you have to look at it.
Okay. Can I respond to that? I understand the argument you're making. Let me try and respond to it. Okay? So first off, I don't agree that whatever begins to exist has a cause. Well, first off, let's just establish that we don't know whether the universe even began to exist or not. So
no, you don't. I'm saying
not just me. The very scientists that people have quoted, people like Alan Guth, people like Roger Penrose, Anthony Aguirre, these are the very scientists that theologians, very prominent theologians, have quoted, right, as backing the case for a beginning, do not think the universe necessarily had a beginning, and they think the universe may be eternal into the past.
That's what I'm saying. Let me just.
Right?
I want you to continue what you're saying. I'm just saying this. When you say we, that's a very generic term. Okay, obviously there's Muslims here, there's Christians here, you know what I mean? And so, what you're saying basically is the scientists don't believe that the consensus of your science is right. And I'm saying that from our research, and you can speak to Muslims as well, they're saying that their consensus, the scientists they've researched, and so what we do is we hit a stalemate. So what we do is we use the logic and the rationale we have right now. And what we say is, okay, let's look at just life in itself, right? Because otherwise you pull up about 5 books that say that affirm your position.
But hang on. Right. It isn't just a question. It isn't just a question of quoting a scientist.
Right.
We give reasons for what we're saying, and then you find the flaws in that person's reason. So what I'm telling you is that the reason that people used to think the universe had a beginning was the singularity theorems. And without those singularity theorems, the rationale for the beginning
But that's not the reason. I have to
hang on.
That's not the reason we have.
Hang on, you gave 3 reasons. I'm trying to do one at a time.
Okay, no, that's not what I said. Let me
I know what you said. You talked about the logical, you can't have an eternal past.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Listen carefully. Perhaps I'm not explaining myself properly. What I'm saying, is I did not come to the position, okay, that the universe began to exist because some consensus of scientists talked about the second law of thermodynamics, the microwave background, Einstein's theory of relativity. That's not what brought me to that evidence.
I know.
I'm simply just saying that from your perspective, because you're going to come from a scientific perspective, I'm saying even now, those scientists, which you said that they no longer do, even scientists say that. But what I'm saying in my position, I'm saying I'm using what I call I'm using logical and rationale. I'm saying as a human just standing here, okay, and if I wanted to determine what happened in the past, just like historians do, there are certain things that they must put into place, okay, or they must. It could be archaeology, it could be it could be various things in order to determine what happened in the past, because we're not there to affirm that happened.
I agree with that.
So my position is this, is that we wouldn't even be here standing talking, okay, if you can address that, because this is philosophy now we're going into.
Yeah, but philosophy must be informed by science.
Right.
You can't just ignore it. Yes.
Philosophy is not with science.
It has to be informed by science. It can't conflict with the scientific evidence that we have.
Well, no, because science changes all the time. Like, for 1 minute, for example, look at our conversation now.
Yes.
We agreed that Stephen Hawking made this statement in the past, but now you've said that scientists have found new evidence, and now it's changed. So you can see science is always evolving, it's always changing.
Well, I don't agree.
Well, we just agreed to that just now.
Hang on. Let me address that. There are certain things in science that do get changed, but there have been many other things that have not been changed.
Well, that's my point.
Because they've been established with so much overwhelming evidence that it would be silly to think otherwise. So, for example, we have not changed our mind that water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. We haven't changed our mind about that, have we? And I don't think we're going to tomorrow find out that actually it's 3 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom.
But you're open to the fact that...
Of course, we're always open. We're always open to it.
That's my point.
So we have to go...
It's changed.
Yes, of course it changes. But we have to go with the evidence as is right now. So if a philosophical argument is in conflict...
Which is what the Kalam argument is, right?
But if it's
not a scientific argument.
Well, it's both, because people are using science, and you did use science to support it.
No, I didn't. See,
you did.
We're talking past each other. What I did, I'll say it for the last time, what I did is I stated something, because obviously I'm a Christian, right, and that's what I'll share. You're an atheist, right? And so I'm saying, where are you drawing your evidence from, right? Your evidences are going to be drawn from the scientific world, right? Mine is going to be drawn from theology and philosophy, right?
Okay.
That's my style. So
I'm not objecting to philosophy. What I'm saying is that when you use philosophy, it has to be consistent with the evidence of the world as is. With
reality, right? But what you said was slightly different, because you said that philosophy has to be always tied in with science.
No, I didn't say that. I said it has to be informed by
science.
Right.
And
what I mean by that, maybe I should clarify what I mean by that. What I mean, and I think all philosophers agree with this. I've never met a philosopher that disagrees with this. Okay, and that is, when you make a philosophical statement, it must be consistent with the evidence of the world as we have it. So if we make some new discovery in science, that may have force a philosophical argument to be revised. Okay, so this argument that you make about the world cannot be eternal into the past, okay, it turns out that our notion of time, what we understand about time, has been revised by science. So in particular, you quote Einstein's theory of relativity, okay? But
so you're going back to science again.
No, but what I'm saying is it affects the
Hmm.
philosophical argument that you make. And I will explain to you why if you let me finish. Okay. So, it turns out that in relativity we don't all experience time at the same rate. Okay? People experience different times, depending on how fast they go, depending on where they are in a gravitational field, depending on their mass, and so on and so forth. Okay? So for example, and this is addressing the point that you made, because as I said, the idea that the universe had a beginning in science goes back to Penrose and Hawking's singularity theorems, and I actually make a film with Roger Penrose, who invented these theorems, or co-invented them with Stephen Hawking. Okay? And Roger Penrose now thinks the universe is eternal into the past, and I asked him your very point. How is it possible so that there could be an eternal chain of causes. So I'm going to give you his answer, but his answer depends on relativity. So you need to understand relativity. Okay? In relativity, the passage of time is dependent upon your speed through space. Okay? So if you go faster and faster and faster, time slows down. Okay? And if you are a massless particles do not experience the conventional passage of time. Their clocks, as we would see them, just stop. Okay? So they experience all moments of time as if they're all the same. So 1 second, 1 million years, a billion years, they're all different units of time for us, but they are not different units of time for massless particles. Okay? So if we go back to the Big Bang and we ask what might have existed before the Big Bang, or what could have crossed through from the prior to the Big Bang to after the Big Bang, the only thing, no matter particles could do so, right? Because it would be too hot, right? So the only thing that could cross through are massless particles like photons or something like that, right? Or maybe space-time itself.
So
right?
So
these do not experience the conventional passage of time. So to answer your, so it's the analogy, maybe this is a bad analogy, but I'm trying to explain it in a layman's terms, so hopefully you'll understand. You can traverse an infinite amount of space if you could go infinitely quickly, right? Right? I mean, okay. Now, similarly, massless particles are. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but it's the best I can come up with.
Well,
they would transverse an infinite amount of time easily. Okay. And this is what Penrose says, who's one of the world's leading mathematical physicists, and no one, they might disagree with some things he says, but they don't disagree with that. Yeah, there's no logical problem of there being an eternal past, because I think what you're assuming, let me make this point. This maybe is more layman point, and it should be more obvious. Things that apply to things in the universe do not necessarily apply to the universe. So, give you an example. Everything in the universe is surrounded by space. Right? Agree with that? Yeah. Right? But of course, the universe is not. It doesn't make sense to say that the universe is surrounded by space, because that would be still the universe.
Yeah, sure.
So there are statements that you can make that would apply to things in the universe that don't necessarily apply to the universe. So certainly things in the universe, like you and I, you and I cannot be going back eternally into the past. So we cannot achieve a task that's going to take us an infinite amount of time. So I agree with that. But it's not necessarily true for the universe as a whole, because time in relativity doesn't follow the way that your intuitive mind thinks that it follows. In fact, in general relativity, we talked really about special relativity, but in general relativity, the consensus view is that there isn't a unique now that the universe has to get to, because that requires something in relativity called a preferred frame. It implies that we, experiencing now today, we have this preferred frame. But in relativity, there is no preferred frame. So there isn't this unique now that the universe has to sort of get to. I think you're assuming that there's a beginning that's infinitely far away, but no, the assumption would be there is no beginning.
I'm simply saying, it's very, very simple. I know,
because you haven't considered the complicating factors of relativity.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, but it is. It does have to be that complicated. Why it doesn't have to be that complicated. Because relativity has to be
Can I have something to say now? Yeah. Okay. So why it doesn't have to be that complicated is because, we're having a dialogue, we're having a rational discussion, and the reason we're able to have a rational, reasonable discussion is because we're able to use our cognitive faculties and and be able to reason and understand. We're using reason, right? Okay. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that there are certain things that we can know. Okay. For example, as a Christian, I can know that I'm standing here speaking to you, right? But as an atheist, okay, there are some things in fact, it would be very difficult for you to be able to find something that you do know as an atheist. Okay. Do you understand what I mean by that?
What do you mean by no? Can you just define what you mean by that term? Because I have what I understand by no. Maybe you understand something different.
Okay. Perhaps I can put it this way.
Yeah.
What do you know, and what makes you certain that it's true?
Okay. I don't like the word certain. I'm certain of very little. I agree with you that we're talking to each other here.
Right.
Okay. And
are you certain that we're standing here talking?
I'm not certain, no. It's possible that this could be a simulation, but I don't see any evidence that that's the truth.
Right.
And all the evidence that I have points to the fact that we are talking to each other here.
Right.
So I would agree that I am confident, and I would say if you define by knowing as confidence beyond a reasonable doubt, then I agree that there are certain things we can know.
What is the evidence that we are standing here?
All the evidence from my senses tells me that we're standing here. So unless I see some contrary evidence that we're not standing here, that we're a simulation or something, then I will go with the hypothesis that we're standing.
So what you're saying is that
Yeah.
your evidence is the empiricism, where your 5 sensory organs are telling you you're standing here. You can see me, you can you can feel me, you can know I'm right here, right? You're fascinated. Now, could your 5 sensory organs be invalid?
Yeah, there could be.
They could
but
be
unless I see some evidence that they are, I don't see any reason to.
So you couldn't know that for certain, right?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I just said that.
Okay, that's right. Okay, exactly.
Do we need to repeat everything?
No, yeah. And so here's the problem with atheism as well.
Okay.
Not atheism. Whatever
you want to call my view.
The problem is that you would then make statements. You make statements about the Kalam, for example, the cosmological argument. You make statements about your view and various other statements, and you say them as if they're certain. You say,
no. I don't make statements with certainty. I make them consistent with the best available evidence that we have.
Okay,
they could be wrong, but I'm going with the best evidence that we have at this.
Let me give an example of things that you say that's certain. Is it wrong for a child to be molested or raped and then killed?
In my view, that is wrong.
Right. Are you certain of that?
I'm as confident as I can possibly be.
Is there a chance that it could be right somewhere?
I don't see how.
Right. So you're making a claim that it's wrong.
Yep.
So it is wrong, okay?
I think it's wrong.
Right. So that's a subjective opinion that it could be wrong.
That's my view. It's wrong.
Right. Okay. So is there a chance, okay, that someone else could believe something different?
Sure.
Right. So who's right, them or yourself?
Well, I think I'm right. They think they're right.
Right. So exactly. So subjective, right? Okay. So the problem is that you have no moral paradigm, no moral.
Why do I have no?
Let me explain why. Because if somebody was to come here and to molest or rape your child, and run off, you would say justice. You would say no, that person should be taken to court. Okay. But you are not in a position to say so because they could be right and you could be wrong. You just have to withhold judgment. Right. You just have to say, well, you know what? Perhaps, I don't know, in my view, you shouldn't have really done that. But as far as I'm concerned,
What's that got to do with rapists?
What it means is that you have no foundation, okay, of knowing anything.
Why?
Explain again.
No, hang on. Let me respond. I know what you're saying. You're giving me the argument for objective morality.
Right, exactly.
Okay. But
not just that. I'm saying that I'll go even further. I'm saying you couldn't even know anything.
Okay.
The presupposition is.
All right. Look, let me respond to that. Okay, you made that argument. That person could also say, "God told me to do it," right? And you wouldn't be able to object because maybe God did tell them to do it.
Right.
So your whole argument makes no sense, right? Because if what you're saying is true, you don't have a basis to make moral statements. You have to go with whatever God commands. And God could have commanded that baby to be kidnapped and raped or whatever, right? So you've got no basis for saying that's wrong either. You don't know what God wants.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
The only way I can know something, or anybody can know something for certain, okay, is if I know everything, so I'm omniscient, or I claim that I know someone who's omniscient, who knows all things, okay? All right? So the only way I can say that I know this for certain, I know that you're standing here in front of me, is if I'm omniscient and I'm, because I'm not just some brain in a vat being wired up and, with memory traces of the past and thinking I'm actually existing here. The only way I can know that is if I know all things, or I know somebody who knows all things, who's omniscient.
But they could be lying to you.
Right,
In that second case, they could be lying to you, right?
No, what I'm saying is this, is that aside from that, you cannot have any grounds, the atheist cannot have any grounds.
But why do we need certainty?
Hold on.
Why do we need certainty?
One at a time. Okay. We get a bit passionate, I know, I'm like that.
Sure. You do go off the Kalam, I'm just reminding you.
No,
we have gone off the Kalam.
We're going to let him go off.
Okay, do you know what? I'm gonna go back to the Kalam quickly because if you think that I'm gonna, we'll come.
We can do them, Moral. We can do them.
Okay.
All right, look, let's give us 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
And you time us 10 minutes.
Sorry,
I'll back to the Kalam.
Okay, the way
10-minute distraction.
Should I go and continue the Kalam? Yeah.
He asked you the question. You said
let me finish up the Kalam. Let me finish the Kalam because I know the reason.
He said no, it's simple.
The reason why I mentioned the Kalam. So the reason why I kind of moved up from the Kalam is because it kind of it was an inroad into what you believe and what you're saying is true. Okay, because remember one of the things I spoke about philosophy, right?
Yeah.
I said that if you go back there's no such thing as an infinite time in the past. And I give you
that's an assertion.
Yeah, right. And I give you an example of you being your boss doing something
you did.
over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's a philosophical term.
Yes.
And you said with certainty I can know, and you started to be.
I never said
sorry.
I did not say
that. Hold on. Sorry, my bad. What you did say is you started making claims about relativity.
Yes.
Okay.
I did do that.
And you was making statements about different types of time and everything else. And I'm saying these things. You couldn't even know those things, okay? And that's where I veered off into.
Okay.
Do you see how the argument
Can I respond to that about not knowing? Can I respond to that? About not knowing.
Oh, okay, I thought we were going to continue the Kalam.
Yes, but this is an issue about knowing. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, you have to define what you mean by know something. I think when you say no, you're looking for certainty, no possible doubts, and I don't look for certainty. Nobody, when you have a murder trial, they do not ask you prove the person is guilty beyond all certainty, right? They don't ask for that. They just say beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So the question is not can we show something with all certainty beyond any possible doubt. We're asked, that's not the standard of evidence that we mean when we say we know something. What we mean when we say we know something is that there's overwhelming evidence. Okay, all the evidence points in one direction. Okay, and it's overwhelming. It's not just little bits of circumstantial evidence. So the overwhelming evidence.
Knowing is what you asked.
So if we want to use the term knowing, my definition of the word knowing is not absolute certainty required by an omniscient being. What I'm saying is, if you take something relativity, if you take something like relativity, Phil, and that's wrong. Yeah. If you take something like relativity, right, we can say
that knowing thing. I just want to quickly touch on that. Yeah, sure. Knowing. Okay, so it's all good using that argument when we're having a discussion, debate. Yeah, sure. Right. It's good to say, oh yeah, we couldn't know anything. It's all relative. It's all subjective. That's great using that. But in real life, you don't live that way. If someone comes to rob you and steal your, your mobile phone or something, and the police says, did that guy steal it from you? Yeah. Yes, he did.
Yes.
Did he? Are you certain of that? No, I'm not certain. It's relative. You don't live your life like that, and neither do I. We make statements every day with certainty. We go to work and we live our lives with certainty. Yes, okay, we have an argument, and now it becomes more relative. I'm saying you don't, and I'm sure on your way home today you're gonna make statements. You're gonna say, and someone's gonna ask you, "Are you sure?" You say, "I'm sure with certainty." And what I'm saying to you is, you make those claims.
Okay, and even but you're using certainty in a different context.
Well, no, I'm using it in terms of know. You see, you know something, and you're certain about it, but for the sake of this argument, you're going to say...
You said I was certain, I never said it.
No, what I'm saying is that in real life, in real everyday life...
If a policeman, can I just respond to that case?
Well, let me just finish, I know you're there. Sure. In real life, you will say you are certain. You will say you're certain. In this argument, you won't, because you have... No, I'm not saying you personally, but it's like an agenda to kind of protect your your argument. But in real life, we all make certain statements all the time, okay? And so what I'm saying to you is that if you're honest and you're honest about this argument, we know for some, that's why I kind of veered off to the moral argument a little bit, because we know things for certain. We know that raping and murder and these things are wrong. We can't say, well, in my eyes it's not, and in your eyes it's wrong. We know for certain. We have an intuitive understanding of that. We know from even as children, as kids, we know lying is wrong. We know that stealing is wrong, and that's why we have a sense of guilt when we do these things. We know these things, and so when you start veering off, it seems a bit disingenuous, because in real life you wouldn't live that way, or you wouldn't speak in that way. You wouldn't say, well, no, he's probably not. Rob's probably not standing there with his camera because you wouldn't say that.
Okay, can I respond to this argument?
Sure,
right, okay. So you wanted to use philosophy, right? And philosophy has to be informed by what we understand about the world, okay? So you're right in that if a policeman came, someone robbed me and took my phone, right? And the policeman said, "Are you sure that you were robbed?" I would say, "Yes, I'm sure," right? But we're not using it. We're not using it in the same context as we're using it in a philosophical argument.
Would you say that with
what we mean is, if he was to say, "Are you certain?" and I would say yes, what we would mean by that, right, is a different context to what we mean of it in a philosophical context. Okay, so I would say what I should say. I might say I'm certain, but what I should say is I'm as certain as I can be. And that is a more accurate thing to say. Now, of course, in the day-to-day of our language and the colloquial use of language, maybe I would say, yes, I'm certain, right? But of course, it's not. In philosophy, we're asked to use language in a much more specific, formally defined way, so that when we discuss these arguments, they're more nuanced than the way we use language in everyday life, okay? So if I want to ask me, right, I'm not going to say to the policeman, yes, I'm pretty certain that I was robbed, but it's possible I live in a computer simulation and it didn't happen. Or it's possible, theoretically possible, that someone implanted the memory of that event into my brain, right, and it didn't happen, right? That's possible. I can't say with certainty that that's impossible, right? But to be honest, I haven't got any evidence that anyone can implant memories into my head. So I ignore, so for practical purposes, of everyday, well, okay.
There's a lot of evidence for that.
Yeah,
one.
you're right, sorry. I mean, what I meant was, physically with a chip. Well, no, hang on, let me finish the point, right? So you're right, for practical purposes you might talk of certainty, but when we talk in a philosophical argument, we're asking for something more nuanced. We're asking for something a bit more sophisticated than what we use in our everyday life. So of course I don't say to the policeman, I'm not certain, it could all be a hallucination, right? But if I'm having a philosophical discussion, we have to include all kinds of notions that if you aren't asking for a philosophical certainty, there's what you might call a practical certainty and a philosophical certainty. And since we're having a philosophical argument, right, we have to use the philosopher's definition of the word certainty and not the practical use of the word.
Well, what we're doing is we're having arguments is kind of littered with different things. So we've discussed the scientific perspective,
right? And
we've also, and as I said to you, I'm not saying that I roll with the scientists. And when I say roll, I mean that
I know what you mean. I know you don't. I know what you mean. You don't mean roll with John. You mean you go along.
So what I'm saying to you is, all I'm simply saying by using that, because from a Christian perspective, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm simply saying that, okay, this is what we're taught as Christians. We're taught in the Bible. However, when I tie it in with reality, when I tie it in with logic and reason, okay, I see, pushing away the science away, I see good evidence that there has to be an eternal being which is personal, which has the free will to choose to create and not to create, who is timeless, spaceless, is extremely powerful to be able to even create this universe. Because if not, we have to go to, and I'm not saying this is your argument, but some atheists will say we evolved through billions of years, and all we have is an evolved monkey's brain. How do we even know we're even making any sense right now? How can we know anything unless there is...
But all of that is true under Christianity, right? All of that is true under Christianity as well. If there's a God, it's quite possible that God implanted memories of all your past, right?
Well, if there's a God,
he could have done that. He might have some reason.
If there's
to
a
do
God,
that.
can he reveal to you?
Right.
Can he reveal to you
Yes.
that
He could have.
He could,
but
right,
he
right.
could also lie to you.
But if there is no
But he
God,
could also lie to you, right? He might have some reason to do that.
right, okay, that's fine.
So,
but
so
I'm
you
saying-
can't know anything either.
Right, okay.
So it's not a difference between atheism and theism about whether we can know stuff for certainty. Because the theist can't know anything for certainty either.
Phil, you're missing
right?
my argument. I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're arguing.
Look, because you said that he might lie to you. What I'm saying, okay, if there is a God, this is our claim.
Yeah.
If there is a God that
Right.
exists,
Yes.
right? Okay, is it possible that he can reveal to us certain information?
Maybe.
Is it possible?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what. So it's
But it might not be.
So it's possible, right?
It might not be possible, right?
But okay, so wait, let's go. Let's rewind. Yeah.
Okay.
If there is a God,
Yeah.
that's because we believe in the God
If
that-
there's a Christian God.
yeah, Christian God,
Okay.
yeah, right? That's all
Okay.
powerful. Would it,
Yeah, okay,
right?
sure.
He can give us that information, correct?
Yes.
Right.
But you don't know that the information is correct.
Hold on. That's fine. Yeah, hold on. What I'm saying to you is, if there is a God, if our claim
Yeah.
that we're making,
Yeah.
is true,
Yeah.
okay? I'm not saying it's true or it's not
Okay,
true at the
sure,
moment.
sure.
I'm saying it's true,
Yeah.
then we can know something. We can know
No,
certain
that I
information.
disagree with.
So all-powerful God couldn't reveal things to us.
He could.
Well, that's
But you are not in a position to know what he reveals to you is true or false.
That's not why I. That's not why I
No,
said.
but it's the implication of what you're saying. Let me respond.
Phil,
Let me
Phil,
respond.
let me explain because I
think, can I just respond?
yeah,
I think you've
straight
made
after
this
this. No,
argument.
I want you to understand.
Yeah.
An all-powerful God.
Yes.
There's certain information.
Yes, yes,
that he
yes.
wants to give to you.
Yes,
right?
I agree,
Okay, right?
agreed. Yeah.
Now, if that God is all-powerful and he wants
Yes.
to give you that information,
Yes.
is that possible that he can give you that information? That's the
Yes,
question
it's
I'm asking.
possible.
Right. Just based on that, okay?
Yes.
Right. So it is possible that I have received information from an all-powerful God. It's possible. Yes.
If there is an
Oh, yes.
all-powerful
If there is an all-powerful God, it's possible.
Yes.
Whereas from an atheist perspective, okay, you cannot know anything.
With certainty.
You can't know anything at all. You couldn't know anything.
Yeah,
The
I
reason why
disagree.
you couldn't know anything.
Yeah.
Whereas from my perspective, an all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing
Right.
God, it's possible he can reveal something to me.
Yeah.
For you, your brain, you just evolve from a monkey
Can I
brain.
respond? Can I
Sure,
respond?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So first off, you can know it. First off, it depends on how you define the word know. Okay.
Should we start thinking about when we're going to round off? Because I'm going to shoot off.
That's
the next-
fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do this issue about knowledge, and then we'll come back to
Yeah,
the Kalam,
yeah, sure.
and then maybe a quick finish off with the moral argument.
All right.
How's
sure,
that?
sure.
Okay. All right. I don't know who wants to keep track of time. If you want to, whatever.
Are you,
We
Right.
are.
Okay.
Yes, we are 12 minutes now. Actually.
Okay.
So if you want to swap over.
Right, no,
You
hang
talk
on.
for
I
12
just want to
minutes
finish
on
this
that.
point about
Okay,
knowledge,
yeah,
right?
go on then.
Okay, so first off, if there is an all-powerful God, he could reveal knowledge to you. But the problem is, you have no way of knowing whether he's actually lying to you or telling you the truth.
That's
so
not-
it
that's
wouldn't.
not my
No,
argument.
let
That's
me
not my
finish.
argument.
Let me finish, right? What I'm saying is, it is the implication of your argument, even though it's not the argument that you're making. The implication of your argument is you can know something with certainty.
Let me tell you what the implication is.
No,
The implication is-
let me finish.
Okay, but that's not my implication.
Right,
You're
no, I know
misrepresenting
it's
it.
not the implication that you want.
No,
I'm saying
no,
it's the
it's not my
implication that
implication
you're
at
dealt
all,
with,
at all.
that you have to deal with. Because that being could lie to you. He might have some ulterior motive, some greater purpose to lie to you and make you convinced that something is true when it is not true, right? And you cannot know what the purposes is of that being. He might have that reason. So in fact, you do not have that certain knowledge that you think you have, right? Second off, right, when I say knowledge or know something, I'm not defining it as certainty, 100% certainty. We just don't need the notion of certainty. All we need is evidence. Do we have sufficiently strong evidence to give us a conclusion that something is true? And of course,
you provided no evidence whatsoever.
okay.
Would you not agree with that?
For what? No evidence for what?
For knowing anything.
Well, I just told you. If
You
we
said,
have,
you said your five
again,
senses.
you're defining knowledge, I think, in a way that's inappropriate. You're defining knowledge as certainty. And
Well,
I'm
that's not
not
what I said.
defining it that way, and I don't think most philosophers or scientists would
Okay, let's
define
make it
it that
easier.
way.
Let's make it easier.
You've got your own
Is there anything
definition
that you
of
can know?
knowledge.
Is there anything you can know?
Define no.
You know what the word "no" is, right?
I know what I think it means, and I told you what I think it means.
Right.
I think it means the evidence coming to me is overwhelmingly strong. Okay? And in that sense, yes, there are plenty of things that I can know.
Okay, so how do you know it's true?
How do I know what's true?
How do you know anything is true?
Okay.
So give me something that you know. Give me something you know.
Okay, I'll give you something that I think is true, right? I think general relativity is an accurate description of space-time at large scales. How do I know that that's true? Because there are lots of predictions that the theory makes. So for example, the theory predicts that a clock on the ground, it will tell a slower time than the clock at the top of a tower, and it won't just say that it will tell you a slower time, it will tell you very precisely how much slower that time is. We then go and do the experiment, okay, and the experiment is exactly what the theory says it would be. Now to me, that's relativity.
Is that theory?
Yes.
In itself, that's a hypothesis, right?
A theory and hypothesis are not quite the same thing.
Well, a theory is not. Would you say a theory is a fact?
Theories and facts are different things.
Well, yeah, no,
they're not like rivals to each other.
Well, you know, but I'm saying, is a theory a fact?
It can be factually confirmed to be the case.
No, that's not a question I asked. I didn't say can it be confirmed. I'm saying, is a theory a fact? That's not a question.
Is a theory a fact?
Because you're saying that I know that general relativity, this theory of general relativity is
true.
You know, it's true.
Yeah.
But
the conditions that we say.
But you use the term theory.
Yes.
Like for example, when
I think you misunderstand the word theory.
No,
because we have to clear up.
No,
here.
I'm asking you. Is a theory a fact?
Is a theory a fact? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
So a theory is a fact.
Can be, and in this case it is.
So you're kind of jumping.
Okay. Let me explain what I mean by the term theory and what I mean by the term fact.
Okay, you do that in a minute. But that was my main point.
We're on it. Let's do it.
No, because it's going to.
No, because you've raised the topic. I think we need to clear it up.
It's theory
because there's a big misunderstanding.
There's
a big misunderstanding, and rather than if I can explain it in 1 minute, I think you will understand what I'm trying to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The facts are things that have been verified to the extent that we're confident that they are true. Okay? Theories are different things. What theories are ideas that explain a whole bunch of different facts under a single explanatory framework. Okay? And they also make predictions for new facts that we're about to observe. So theories are explanatory frameworks. So it might be a fact that a clock that's here will tell a slower time than a clock that's here, or time itself runs slower there than here. That's a fact. General relativity is a theory because it explains that fact.
So,
okay,
so
and it also and it predicts the existence of that fact. Okay, so if we then go and do the experiment, and the evidence overwhelmingly confirms the predictions of the theory, then we can say that the theory is overwhelmingly confirmed and is a fact.
So we can agree that a theory is not a fact. You just basically said before that. I think you said it's a theory.
A theory can be a fact. As I said, I'm defining fact as something that's confirmed overwhelmingly.
Okay, let's move on.
And theories can be confirmed overwhelmingly.
I've never seen a theory. For example, let's just take a layman's example.
Yes.
When I go for my driving license, there's the theory and there's the practical. The practical is not the same as the theory.
Yes, because they're using the word theory in a different context.
Right. So what I'm saying to you is this, okay? Right? You have certain theories, okay?
Yes.
But they cannot be actualized. By the way,
yes, they can be.
Alright, okay. Well, let's just
because you're using the term theory in a different context. You're using a layperson's understanding of the word theory, but it's not the understanding of the word theory that scientists and philosophers use.
Right. Okay? So you're saying a theory is a fact?
No. What I'm saying is theories can be facts, and it is in this case.
Alright, okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, I'll take you. It doesn't make sense, but let's move
why?
Because
why does
because you're saying it can be and it cannot be.
Okay.
So it's either it is or it's not.
No, in certain cases.
You said it can be.
Okay, let's put it this way: is a person guilty or innocent?
Is a person guilty or innocent?
Yeah.
Well, it depends what they did.
Exactly, it depends, right? So that's why I'm saying here, it depends.
It depends.
Right?
No, but
so the question, the answer depends on the context. You can't just give a blanket
give me
answer.
A theory that's a fact.
General relativity is factually confirmed within any scale that is cosmological in nature. Okay, any scale that's not subatomic, I would say general relativity is a fact.
Can you give me another?
Sure. Kepler's third 3 laws of planetary motion.
Alright, okay, let's go back to our point. Our point is this, right? From an atheist perspective, right, this is the issue we have, right?
Yeah.
Is you cannot know anything, okay? Right? The only thing you've come back with is you have various, is that your claim is that, well, hold on, I can see something, or I can use empiricism, which is basically saying to know I can see, I can smell, and I don't have any evidence apart from that. But then I put to you the fact, certain facts is that, one, could what you're seeing, could you know, we know that people could have their thinking or their reasoning could be invalid.
But so could yours.
Well, no, that's
but there's not a difference between deism and atheism. Of course we could all be wrong.
Okay. Can I finish? Can I finish what I'm saying? It could be invalid, right?
Yes.
Okay?
Of course it could be.
Right? And also, we don't know for certain, because I give you in a scenario of being perhaps in a science lab, and your brain being wired and so on and so forth. Yeah? So what I'm saying to you is you don't know for certain. But, however, with Christian perspective, if remember I'm using the word if, yeah? If there is an all-powerful God who knows all things and decides to choose to reveal information to us, it is possible for us to know things. Whereas in your position, it is impossible to know anything.
Okay. Can I
that's what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and I'm saying that is wrong. And the reason that is wrong is a couple of things. First off, you're using a definition of the word knowledge that is inappropriate. You're assuming 100% confidence, which we don't need. Second off, even if there was an all-powerful, omniscient God that gave you knowledge, you could never know whether he's telling you the truth or not. Right? So therefore, you have the same uncertainty that I have. Right? You cannot know anything for certain because you don't know whether that God is giving you the right information. It could be Satan giving you that information.
But listen to what I'm
you
saying.
can never know that it's that God giving you the information, or even if he's giving you the right information.
Because I have to shoot them. Sure, what I'm saying to you is, that's not the argument.
I know that.
You keep saying that, well, Hanan, you know what? That's what you're referring to. No, that's not my argument. What I'm saying to you, the only argument I'm making is this. It could be an evil God giving me information. That's not what, or he could be a lying God. That's not the point I'm making. The argument I'm making is it possible for a God who's all powerful, omniscient, to give me information? That's the only argument I'm making. If it's possible, then it's also possible that I could know something for true, right? For real. Okay? I'm asking you, but from an atheistic perspective, it is impossible. There isn't a possible scenario whereby you could know something. Whereas Christians can have a possible scenario. That's what it is. It's simply just saying probability and possibilities. But you have no way of even knowing you're standing here talking to me. No way.
As I said, listen, you're using a completely inappropriate use of the word now.
Hopefully we can continue our conversation.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to shoot you. That's it. Take it.